ओरल प्रेजेंटेशन के 4th चैप्टर के साथ आपके सामने हम मौजूद। डेवलपिंग द प्रेजेंटेशन हमारा आज का टॉपिक है। डेवलपिंग द प्रेजेंटेशन में हम सीखेंगे कि प्रेजेंटेशन को हम डेवलप कैसे करते हैं, प्रेजेंटेशन को क्रिएट कैसे करते हैं, और प्रेजेंटेशन की बॉडी हम कैसे बनाते हैं, और फिर एक बॉडी प्रेजेंटेशन की बनाने के बाद हम उसको कंक्लूजन की तरफ किस तरीके से लेके जाते हैं। इन तमाम पॉइंट्स को आप लॉजिकली जहन में कनेक्ट कीजिएगा, और इफ यू हैव द लॉजिक क्लियर इन योर माइंड देन यू विल नॉट हैव टू रेटिफाई एवरीथिंग। सिर्फ लॉजिक्स को अपने जहन में क्लियर रखें, बिकॉज यही लॉजिक्स आपके प्रैक्टिकल एग्जाम के अंदर भी काम आएंगे आपके, और अगर थ्योरेटिकल एग्जाम अगर आपका होता है तो भी आप इसी लॉजिक के तहत अपने इस पेपर को बहुत आराम से क्लियर कर लेंगे। प्रेजेंटेशंस, ओरल प्रेजेंटेशंस, डेवलपिंग द प्रेजेंटेशन। प्रेजेंटेशन को शुरुआत करने से सबसे पहले जो मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग है, जो हमारे इसके आज के टॉपिक का मेन जो सबसे पहला पॉइंट है, वो ओरल प्रेजेंटेशंस है। ओरल प्रेजेंटेशंस से क्या मुराद है? ओरल प्रेजेंटेशन से मुराद every that presentation in which you deliver the message by talking. That presentation is known as oral presentation. While in written presentation, you do not give delivery through a verbal talk. You rather just present the idea through some written message or anything which is written only. But when you talk about oral presentation, in that oral presentation, you need to talk yourself, you need to talk about the points, you have to talk about various ideas, you have to clarify various presentation important points through the logical framing of ideas and the logical transition of ideas, that is from one point to another, and eventually reaching towards conclusion. This logical flow presentation we maintain during our oral presentations. When we do not maintain this logical flow of discussion during our presentations, then any intellectual audience is going to get bored, because the audience who is not interested in the talk will not be paying heed to the way the presentation is being flown. But if somebody is paying complete attention, then the abrupt flow presentation is not going to create any interest of the listener in the presentation. Therefore, it is very important that we, first of all, should know what we are talking about. Oral presentations, जैसे हमने discuss किया कि oral presentations, every that presentation in which we deliver a message through a verbal talk is actually called oral presentation. अब oral presentation कौन कौन देता है हमारी real life के अंदर? सबसे पहले एज ए टीचर मैं अभी आपके सामने एक ओरल प्रेजेंटेशन दे रहा हूं। उसके बाद जब आप लोगों के एग्जाम्स होते हैं तो ड्यूरिंग योर एग्जाम्स आप लोग फिर एक प्रेजेंटेशन प्रिपेयर करते हैं और यू गिव द ओरल प्रेजेंटेशन बैक टू द क्लास, दैट इज ओरल प्रेजेंटेशन। लाइकवाइज आप जब ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को ज्वाइन करते हैं, ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को ज्वाइन करने के बाद जो सेल्स के डिपार्टमेंट के लोग हैं उनको इन प्रेजेंटेशंस की बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत पेश आती है, because every now and then they have a client to deal with and they have to pitch the products of the company they are actually representing. So presentation is something which is very, very important skill which for everybody. There are going to be departments for which there is no much need of presentation on frequent basis, but despite that there are going to be times when there is going to be a requirement of a presentation, and if you are not well versed with the art of delivering a presentation, then there is going to be something very difficult for you, and there is going to be a difficult situation for you to deal with if you are not well versed with the art of delivering a presentation. You must put an emphasis on this point that I am calling it an art. So therefore it is important that we practice and practice and practice so that our art gets more sharper and sharper. Whenever we talk about any art, then there is some practical demonstration of things. So when there is an art to be displayed, so there are going to be different presentations style, there are going to be different style of display of the art. There are going to be people who are more skilled in that, and there are going to be people who are average skilled in that. There are going to be people who are less skilled in that. So since presentation is an art, therefore the beautiful thing is, one of the most important thing is that this is the art, so therefore it can be practiced. And the more you practice it, the more you're going to get better at it. So if you want to become good at presentations, the best part is that through only practice and practice, you can become very, very good in presentation skills. And let me tell you something. Despite having all the knowledge of the world, if you're not familiar with the art of giving a presentation, you will be facing a big trouble in your practical life, because that is the time where your whole image gets to meet a disaster. Therefore, it is very important that you have all the time your this weapon ready whenever there is need of use of this weapon, which is the art of delivering a presentation. So as we discussed that oral presentation is a presentation in which we deliver the message through a verbal talk. Now establishing the purpose is the second most important part of delivering a presentation. Now what comes in your mind when we say establishing a purpose? The best example to understand this point is that if we give an example that there are two people who are heading off from home at 9 a.m. in the morning. One person is about to start his driving and he does not know what is his destination. He keeps on driving for like 3 hours and he does not know where in fact he has to go. While at the same time there is another person who is leaving home at 9 a.m. and he knows that he has to travel on the super highway and he has to, reach to next city, which is Hyderabad. So 3 hours duration he gives himself, that within 3 hours I need to reach to this city in the province. And now he has a destination in his mind, he has a purpose in his mind. Why is he driving? While the other person who also took out the car in the morning at 9 a.m., he did not have any purpose in his mind. He also took out the car and he also got seated. So both drivers started driving the car at 9 a.m. in the morning. And at 12 a.m., there were two different status. At 12 a.m., the gentleman or the lady who had this target in her or his mind that he has to reach to another city within 3 hours, he will be reaching to that city within 3 hours, because he in fact or she in fact had purpose in the mind that where exactly she or he is trying to lead. So the person who was not knowing anything regarding his driving purpose, and he just knew that he is just taking the car out and he just wants to drive, and he does not know any destination where he would want to go. So after 3 hours, when we talk about this gentleman or this lady, so after 3 hours, this person will not have, will not be making any achievement, because within 3 hours, this person would have not achieved in anything in life. 3 hours of total waste, 3 hours of continuous driving, waste of petrol, waste of energy, waste of the personal energies, waste of focus of while during drive, but reaching nowhere. While the person who was having the ambition clear in the mind that within 3 hours that person has to reach to the next city, within 3 hours that person reached to the next city. So therefore, it is important that we figure out that when we starting our journey, we should know our purpose, because if we do not know our purpose, then we will be lost. So we would not like to be lost in this life journey. We would rather like to reach at our destinations, and we would rather like to celebrate our victories. So we will only be celebrating our victories once and only when we know our ultimate purpose, why we are doing what we are doing. So presentation, it is very important to find out at the beginning of the presentation that what is the presentation purpose? What is the purpose of the presentation? Why are you delivering a talk? As a doctor, do you have to give a presentation on a new disease which is prevailing in the market? Or as a salesperson, do you have to give a presentation on the product which is there in the market? Or there was some disaster which had taken place in the market, and now the company is trying to do the repairment of the damage. And with the customers, they are trying to just give the talk. I mean, to the customer, they're just trying to give a talk that why and what were the various reasons why the disaster took place, and now how in the world the company is going to take care of that disaster. So this is another purpose of the presentation, that you are going to create the purpose that the purpose of this type of presentation is going to be disaster recovery. And telling you honestly, during the smooth sales, everybody performs quite fine. But the actual test of the nerves come in front when you have met the disaster, because not everybody has got the capability, not everybody has got the capacity, not everybody has got the nerves to stand up again after facing the disaster. So if you have this skill developed in you, then telling you honestly, you cannot be defeated. Because when you have this skill set of standing up again after getting a fall, you will never be losing in your life, because you know that failing is just part of the process. This is not the ultimate destination. Therefore, it is important to find out that what is the purpose of your presentation right in the beginning of your presentation. So, like we have discussed certain purposes, that what are the various reasons why we give a talk. Like for instance, for right now, if I am delivering a talk, so the purpose of my, I mean, this talk which I'm delivering right now is to talk about this topic of developing the presentations. So had I have not this point in my mind clear, then there were a lot of things in the world which I could have talked about. I could have talked about tennis. I could have talked about Mike Tyson's boxing re-entry, and I could have talked about Habib's father dying, and there were like a lot of topics in the world which I could have talked about. But I mean, that would only have been done because yeah, when I did not have any purpose in my mind. So I would have talked about every that point which was coming and crossing my mind. So, but once I have my clear purpose in the mind, then I will not jump on to every tempting thing which is just coming in my mind. I'll rather just keep a mind in my mind so that every distracting thought is being blasted there and then, so that my focus is totally retained on the topic I actually am giving a talk on. So therefore, this is the same thing which you have to manage. You need to have skill of focus, muscle of focus so strong so that there's nothing which is able to distract you from the topic you are delivering a talk on. So therefore, establishing the purpose is something very important in the beginning of your talk. If you are giving the presentation for your school exams or your college exams or your university exams, so you know the purpose. You should know the purpose, that what is the purpose of your presentation. If you are going to be giving a talk, so what is going to be the topic of that presentation? So according to the topic, you will be giving a talk. Maybe you will be talking about leaderships or leadership skills. Maybe you're going to give a talk on United Nations, some act, or UN, I mean, any act of United Nations, or there are going to be different purposes you might be having to talk on. So if you have this clear purpose in your mind, then and only then you will be able to give a talk on your presentation very properly. So establishing the purpose is the first and foremost important thing you need to have in your mind before the start of your presentation. So oral presentation, we have now understood that whenever there is a verbal talk to be delivered for the message which you have in your mind to be communicated, then this is an oral presentation which you're dealing with. The second important thing is that when you are delivering this oral talk, you are having this clear purpose in your mind. So the third important thing, which is in the part of today's presentation, and this point is, now you are getting a little specialized in your presentation, because like I said, in the presentation there is going to be purpose first of all clear in your mind, and after having the purpose clear in your mind, then there are three steps which you have to keep in your mind to keep the smooth flow of your presentation going. There should be a proper introduction, then there should be a body of presentation, and there should be a conclusion. So this is going to be a transition from the opening of the presentation to the mid part of the presentation to the closing of the presentation. So we need to have these three parts very clear in mind, because in introduction, we should not be starting from the direct message of the presentation. We should rather be just giving an overview of the talk which you will be delivering during this presentation. There should be a brief in your mind. You should just give a background, that what is the reason why you're giving a talk, what is the topic all about, what is regarding that topic taking place in the world. What is then from the world to, you would narrow down your topic from the world, you'll reach to your own country, then to your own to your own company. So it's coming from macro level to the micro level. That is the way research is also done, that you see, you start from the world, can from the global level, and then you gradually just cuts it down and brings it to your own scenario where you are actually living and dealing with situations. So this way you will be just driving your talk, you will be driving your presentation. So now one of the most important thing to understand during the presentations is actually thesis. Thesis is something which we create at the end of our presentations, at the end of our semesters normally. Most of the time, people after completion of their the last project which you have to which the students have to do in their study is to is to create a thesis. This is a complete research work. In this, all of your capabilities are tested. All during your studies of BBA, whatever you have studied, all that skill which you have learned during the whole process of BBA, you are going to gather that skill out. You're going to assemble that skill out, and you are going to implement and execute that skill out in the process of creation of thesis. In thesis, you will create you will discuss about a problem. There may be a problem prevailing in the society with having no solution there. So you are going to pick that problem. Then you will be doing some research on that. That you see how it's a journey. Thesis writing is the journey from finding a problem to finding a solution. So that's the process which we follow when we create thesis. Because normally people are good at fingering up, pointing fingers towards various issues which are there in the market, but when it comes to the solution, they do not have any solution in their mind to give. So the educated person always have a solution in the mind for the audience, so that it's not only the criticism for the sake of criticism which is taking place, rather you are very clear in your head with not only the issues which are there in the market, but also you are very familiar with the solutions which should be adopted to eradicate that issue which is there in the market or society or wherever. So therefore, and for this thesis writing, you need to be first of all an out of box thinker, because see, now you're trying to solve a problem which is there with no solution. So you cannot have a monotonous thinking in your mind which will be helping you out. For a good problem solver, for a good thesis writer, you need to be a creative thinker, an out of box thinker. You should not be thinking regarding the obvious things only. You should rather be thinking about out of the box ideas. You should rather be thinking about various solutions which an average mind cannot think about, cannot talk about. And that is the reason why you are doing the thesis work. Because if it was easy, then everybody would have been doing it. This is not easy. That is the reason why only you would be doing it, or only person with the right skill for that is actually going to be doing it. So therefore, in thesis, there is a detailed research which is done to initially find out the problem, and then we move on with it. So in the I mean this the in the thesis style presentation, we are going to follow the same. If we follow the same pattern of presentation during our routine presentations, then we can be a big success in this art of delivering the presentation. So normally the thesis actually starts with an introduction. Introduction is the first part in which you talk about the various things which you talk, or various points which you have in your mind regarding any idea which you will be talking about. In the introduction part, you talk about the context and background of the idea and explain what paper is all about. In the introduction part, you will be talking about the context and background of the idea, whatever problem you get to have in your mind. So you will be thinking about the various possible outcomes or various possible solutions you can come up with to solve that problem out. For example, you talk about this pandemic which is prevailing these days in the market, and you are there to work and create a thesis on the various ways this pandemic can be tackled. So since the whole world is actually in the process, whole medical world is actually in the process of finding out the solution for this pandemic. So this is exactly the area. This is exactly the place where the thesis work actually gets out to be in, gets in the picture, because now the doctors would be doing the research, the people from pharmaceutical industry, the people from medicine industry, they would all be doing the research. They'll find out the problem. They will initially find out the problem, that why is this pandemic taking place at the first place. So they will find out the germ at the first, introduction. They will find out the whole process of this, finding out the problem of, of finding the solution of this pandemic is initially to find out that what type of virus this is. And then in the second phase, what are the various type of damages which this virus has the capability to create. How will you find out? You will find out through the various people in the world who have been affected through this pandemic virus. So you have this research data in front of you, so you will get to know the intensity of this virus, that what are the various kind of disasters which a person will have to deal with if that pandemic has strike to that person. So after knowing that, now since you know the problem, so now you will start catering it. You will find out, after having this problem properly ascertained, after having this problem properly clarified in your mind, that what is the nature of the virus, and what are the various kind of diseases this virus is actually creating. Is this something related to lungs only, or throat only, or sinus system only? Because mainly we have come to know that people who are getting affected with it are more having problems with their sinus. So there's something to attach with this process of lungs and respiratory system. So with this kind of research, what you do is that you find out the nature of that virus, nature of that problem. Then you start figuring out the various ways that problem can be tackled. You will find out the various existing ways through which that problem is already being tackled. If there is any sinus related issues, then how those sinus related issues are already being solved. I mean, are there any existing solutions in the market available, or there are no solutions available at all in the market? So you will find that out in your research. And you will find out that what are the various types of, for example, if you just restrict yourself to this respiratory side only. So just keep relating, just continue relating my example to the presentation we will be delivering. This is the complete context of the talk which you will be delivering during the presentation. This is the thesis work which we are actually talking about right now. So after finding out the intensity of virus and what are the various type of diseases, what are the various types of damages which that can actually done, then you will find out that in, for example, there are like 12 type of damages, regarding the respiratory system it has potential of creating. So you'll find out that regarding those 12 various types of damages, if is there any remedy already available in the market. You'll find out that, okay, for the 9 type of damages there is already a remedy available in the market, but there are 3 type of damages which are new, which are out of the box, which are strange, but we're having no solutions already prevailing in the market. Now these 3 points are going to be of great importance for you, because now you will work on these 3 points. You will find out that, see, if these circumstances are developed, then how these 3 circumstances are going to be addressed. Now you will find out, and you will start doing you will start coming up with various combinations, and how these new 3 problems can be exactly solved. So after discussing about various options of solution, this is something which you do in the part of hypothesis. In hypothesis writing, you come up with null hypothesis and positive hypothesis. In that hypothesis, I mean, that this is something which you need not to know in very detail, which you eventually will be knowing after, I mean, when you'll be completing your BBA, inshallah, eventually. So, but this is something which you just need to know at the surface level, at least, that you see that during the thesis we also come up with hypothesis. In hypothesis, we find out the various ways that such certain problem can be solved. So after doing the hypothesis testing, then we will do the research, and after completing the research, then we will reach at the conclusion. So that's the flow. So now if you come back to the presentation flow, then the same, this thesis style of presentation is going to be starting with this introduction. In your introduction, you will give the background of the problem you will be talking about. Like we just gave the example in the literature review, but I mean, this is the second part of the presentation, which is literature review. In the literature review, you will include the current knowledge of theory and methodology regarding the topic. You will, in literature review, you will tell about that. You see what are the various things which are already there in the market, like we discussed earlier. That you talk about all the existing ways there's certain situations being dealt with, and you give a complete picture that you see what is the actual scenario right now in relation to that problem you're actually talking about. And in the third step, which is of methodology, in methodology part, students describe the methods to use for the dissertation. Dissertation is again the is the name for that research work which you do. But since we're talking about presentation right now, so let's put it we let's um, uh, let's bring it in accordance with the presentation topic. So let's call it part where students describe the methods to use for the presentation topic. So in this work, when you create the presentation, even the slides you create, first of all, you will create the introduction slides of that presentation. In the second slide, which is of literature review, what you will do is you will create the complete background. You will complete and give the complete background of the problem which is there. After in the literature part, you will give the current knowledge of the theory and methodology regarding the topic. So what are the various things? What are the various ways those? I mean the I mean that this discussed problem is already being tackled in the market. In the third part, which is of methodology, you will describe the various ways you will be trying to solve the problem out. Then in that part we also discuss that you also use the hypothesis. So in methodology part, you will talk about the various possible you will talk about various possible solutions which you might be testing to solve that problem out. So for example, you have figured out five possible ways the any certain situation can be addressed or any certain problem can be solved. So you will be testing those five solutions. So you have to pick the one best solution from those five solutions. So in methodology part, you will describe all those five solutions which you will be using to solve that problem out. And in the results part, then the next step would be first the would be of result. First part was introduction, then was literature review. From literature review, you reached at methodology, and from methodology, you will be reaching at results. The five various possible ways the problem can be solved. You will test those five various options, and then you will talk about the results you actually found out after doing the research work. You will discuss about the result, and then comes the discussion part. A section to answer all the questions and justify the selected approach. For example, if you get to find out that you see there is this one approach through which that problem can be solved in the best manner, then you will give the solution to the audience, and the audience is going to is going to ask questions from you. So you audience will be asking the various question that why, what is the justification you have reached to conclusion to pick that option as an option to solve that problem out. So in this part, you will be in the discussion part, you justify your argument. And in the last part, which is of conclusion, you will conclude the topic. A summarized version of the findings, private opinions, recommendations, and limitations you actually give in that. So the flow goes like this again. Let's just repeat it. It was starting from introduction, then literature review, then methodology, then results, then discussion, followed by conclusion. So these are the six general principles which in fact are followed for the thesis type of presentations. So this is since a professional way of presentation in which you actually we give a talk on thesis. So if we structure our presentation in the same manner, the way these professional presentations are structured, then our presentation is our every single presentation is going to get beautified automatically because you are following the best practices. This is something which you will be doing. So therefore, now we have figured out that these are the various ways you actually can develop the thesis, develop the material of your presentation, material of your talk. So this the basic principle of this presentation delivery part is there is a proper introduction, then there is this body, and there is this conclusion. So, but this part, these three parts, if are further bifurcated, then these further parts should be bifurcated in this manner, that there should be an introduction, then literature review, then methodology, then results, then discussion, then conclusion. So this way, you can actually structure your talk and you can make your presentation the best presentation ever. So today we have talked about oral presentations, that what are oral presentations, why do we need oral presentations, who are the various people who actually need these oral presentations. Then we discussed about establishing the purpose, that what is the reason why we establish a purpose of any presentation. Then we talked about, after establishing the purpose, then we talked about developing the thesis, that how exactly the thesis is developed, what is the purpose of developing that thesis, and this just what is the purpose of the presentation, how that presentation material is going to be all gathered, and how all the structure and all the flow is going to be managed, is all something which we discuss in this developing the thesis part, with proper introduction, proper literature review, proper methodology, proper results, proper discussion, proper conclusion. So with this, I hope we have discussed the key points of today's topic, and I hope all of you must be well aware with the ways this oral communication problem can be tackled. So now we have reached to the conclusion of today's topic, and if you do not get to find answer of any question in your mind, then you can always revert to us. We will answer back your queries, and you can also replay this presentation to find out exactly what the confusion is in your mind. So with this, let's conclude our talk, and we will be meeting in the next topic.